The station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. Station Helix 9 was old, built by hands that no longer existed, and it served as home to the Galactic Military Academy. Here, young warriors from 100 different worlds came to learn the art of combat. Here, species that had conquered star systems sent their finest children to prove their worth. Did not belong here. She walked through the corridors with her head down, a tablet pressed against her chest. She was a translator, nothing more. The Galactic Compact had only recently allowed humans to join their great alliance, and humans were not respected. They were seen as weak, soft, lucky to have survived long enough to reach the stars. Had learned to ignore the stares, the whispers, the way larger species would bump into her and never apologize. She was here to do a job, translate documents, help with communication, stay invisible. Today was Combat Assessment Day. Warriors from across the galaxy would demonstrate their skills in the grand arena. Had been ordered to attend as part of the human delegation, though she knew the real reason. The Academy wanted humans to watch and understand their place, to see what real warriors looked like. The grand arena was massive. Thousands of seats rose up around a circular pit made of dark stone. The stone was ancient, stained with the blood of countless species over 10,000 years. Holographic displays floated above the pit, showing information about each fighter. And in the center of it all stood the scanner, a pillar of black crystal that could read any living creature and determine its threat level. Found her seat among the other humans. There were only 12 of them, and they looked small and fragile compared to the crowds around them. Lieutenant sat nearby, a military observer who seemed more interested in sleeping than watching. Technician Bora was reviewing data on his screen. None of them expected anything interesting to happen. The demonstrations began. A warrior stepped into the pit first. His name was, and he was enormous. His body was covered in dark green scales, hard as armor. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His eyes were yellow and cold like a predator watching prey. Moved through his combat forms with terrible grace. His 4 arms wielded weapons in patterns too complex for most eyes to follow. The crowd cheered. The scanner displayed his information in glowing letters: species, RI, classification, apex predator, threat tier, maximum. Watched without expression. She had seen warriors before. Her grandmother had taught her that size and strength were not everything. But her grandmother was dead now, and those lessons felt like dreams from another life. Finished his demonstration and raised all 4 arms in victory. Then his yellow eyes found the human delegation. His wide mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile. He walked toward them. The crowd grew quiet, sensing entertainment. Humans, said, his voice was deep and rough. The Compact's pets. Tell me, do they teach combat on your little world, or do you simply run and hide when danger comes? No one answered. The humans had been trained not to respond to provocation. Leaned closer. I heard that humans taste like soft fruit. Perhaps I should find out. Felt her heart beat faster. She kept her eyes down. Do not react. Do not give him what he wants. But had already chosen his target. His upper right arm shot out and shoved hard. She fell forward, tumbling over the low barrier, and landed in the arena pit. The stone was cold against her palms. The tablet shattered beside her. The crowd erupted in laughter. Pushed herself up slowly. Her knees were scraped. Her hands were trembling. She could feel 10,000 eyes watching her, waiting to see the weak human cry. Commander, the Academy's headmaster, watched from his elevated platform. He was a serpent-like species with scales of deep blue and eyes like black glass. He saw what happened. He did not intervene. Humans were not worth his attention. Jumped down into the pit. He landed with a heavy thud that felt through her feet. He was still smiling. Look at this, he announced to the crowd. A human in the arena. Perhaps she wants to fight. More laughter, said nothing. She was looking for a way out, but the walls were too high. Reached to his belt and drew his ceremonial blade. It was a curved weapon, sharp enough to cut through metal. He looked at it for a moment, then tossed it at its feet. "Pick it up," he said. "Die with honor, little human. It is more than your species deserves." The blade lay on the ancient stone, stared at it. In her mind, she heard her grandmother's voice, calm and steady like it always was. "When they give you a weapon, they have already made a mistake." Bent down and picked up the blade. It was heavier than it looked, but the balance was good. Her fingers found the grip naturally, as if they remembered something her mind had forgotten. The moment she touched the weapon, the scanner activated. No one had commanded it. The ancient precursor technology simply responded to something it detected. The black crystal began to glow. Symbols appeared in the air, cycling through languages and data patterns. The crowd fell silent. Commander leaned forward, his black eyes narrowing. The scanner's display flickered, glitched, tried to process information that did not fit its 10,000-year-old parameters. Then it showed its results. Species human Terran. Classification unclassified apex. Threat assessment error parameters. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The words hung in the air like a question that had no answer. Stared at the display, his smile was gone. Stood in the center of the arena, the blade in her hand, and felt something old wake up inside her. The silence in the arena stretched like a held breath. 10,000 warriors from 100 worlds stared at the holographic display, trying to understand what they were seeing. The scanner had never failed. Not once in 10,000 years. It had classified every species in the known galaxy, from the smallest insect beings to the great void whales that swam between stars. Now it displayed an error for a human. Commander rose from his platform. His serpentine body moved with cold grace as he slithered toward the edge, looking down at the arena floor. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Technician, explain this malfunction." Bora stood up quickly from the human section. He was sweating. Every eye turned to him, and he could feel the weight of their attention like pressure against his chest. He was a systems analyst, not a soldier. He had never wanted attention. I will need to run diagnostics, Commander," he said. His voice was thin but steady. "With your permission, I will access the scanner's primary systems." Waved one clawed hand. "Do it now." Bora climbed down to the arena floor. He tried not to look at as he passed her. She was still standing in the center of the pit, holding his blade, and there was something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. Something old and patient. He reached the scanner and connected his tablet. Data flowed across his screen. His fingers moved quickly, checking system after system. His frown deepened with each passing moment. "Commander," he finally said, "the scanner is functioning correctly. There is no malfunction." Whispers spread through the crowd like wind through grass. Silence them with a look. "Then explain the reading," he demanded. Bora swallowed. "I cannot. The scanner is working as designed. It simply cannot categorize what it detected in the human female." Stepped forward. His scales had darkened with anger, a sign of deep offense in culture. "This is a trick. Humans are weak. Everyone knows this. Their world's gravity is barely enough to crush an egg. Their bodies have no natural weapons. They are prey animals who learn to use tools." "And yet," said softly, "the scanner disagrees." Had not moved. She listened to them talk about her as if she was not there. Her mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away and long ago. She was remembering her grandmother's house in the mountains. The house had no modern technology. No screens, no communicators, no connection to the wider world. Had thought her grandmother was simply old-fashioned. A traditionalist who preferred the old ways. Now she understood differently. Her grandmother had woken her before sunrise every morning, made her run up the mountain paths until her legs burned, made her carry water from the stream until her arms felt like fire, made her practice movements that seemed like dance but were not dance at all. "This is your inheritance," her grandmother had said. "This is what your ancestors carried for 10,000 years. The world forgot, but we did not." Had not understood. She was a child. She wanted to play games and watch shows like other children, but her grandmother was patient and firm, and eventually the movements became part of her body. She did not have to think about them. They simply existed within her like breathing or heartbeat. When her grandmother died, had left the mountains. She had studied languages, gotten a job, traveled to the stars. She had buried the inheritance deep inside her and tried to become a normal person. The blade in her hand did not feel like a foreign object. It felt like an extension of her arm. His voice broke through her memories. "I demand this duel continue. This human has accepted my challenge. Honor requires blood." Studied with his black glass eyes. She was small by any standard. Thin. Her hair was dark and pulled back from her face. She looked like a creature that should have been running away, not standing calm in the center of an arena. But the scanner had called her an apex. The scanner had never been wrong. The human accepted the challenge, agreed. By Academy law, the duel may proceed if both parties consent. His eyes fixed on, "Human, you may withdraw. No one will think less of you." That was a lie, and everyone knew it. If humans would be mocked even more. The story would spread across the galaxy. A human was too afraid to fight even after picking up a weapon. But if she fought, she would almost certainly die. Was a trained warrior from a species bred for combat. She was a translator. Looked at the blade. She thought about her grandmother's hands, rough and strong, guiding her through movements in the cold mountain morning. She thought about every time someone had called humans weak, every time someone had pushed her aside, every time someone had laughed. "I consent," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the arena. The crowd stirred. This was unexpected. This was interesting. Smile returned. His forearms spread wide and he cracked his neck with a sound like breaking stone. "Good. I will make your death quick, little human. A gift for your courage." Shifted her weight slightly. Her feet found their position on the ancient stone without conscious thought. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. The inheritance was waking up. Raised his hand. "The duel will proceed. First blood or yield determines the victor." He paused, then added with something that might have been curiosity, "Begin." Charged. Moved like a storm. His massive body crossed the arena in 3 steps. His 4 arms came at from different angles, each one capable of breaking her spine with a single blow. His scales shifted color as battle fury filled his blood. He was a warrior in his prime, trained since birth to kill. Was not there when his fists arrived. She moved to the side like water flowing around stone. Her body dipped low, her feet shifted, and suddenly she was behind him. His blow struck empty air. He spun, confusion flickering across his reptilian face. She had not attacked, she had simply moved. Roared and attacked again. This time he used all 4 arms in a sweeping pattern designed to catch quick opponents. It was a technique that had killed assassins and ambushed predators across 3 star systems. There was no escape from it. Stepped inside the sweep. She was suddenly very close to, inside the reach of his arms, where his strength could not be properly used. Her elbow touched his chest. Her hip pressed against his lower arm. She redirected his momentum with a tiny twist of her body. Stumbled, he did not fall, but he stumbled. A warrior made to stumble by a human woman half his size. The crowd made no sound. They were watching something they could not understand. Lieutenant was no longer sleeping. He sat forward in his seat, his eyes wide. He recognized fragments of what was doing. Old Earth forms. Combat systems that humans had developed over thousands of years of killing each other. But they were blended together, refined, evolved into something he had never seen. "What is she?" Bora whispered beside him. Shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but she's not fighting like any human I've ever seen." In the arena had stopped charging. He circled now, his yellow eyes narrow with new caution. He was a warrior. He knew when something was wrong. "You are trained," he said. "I did not expect this." Said nothing. She watched him move. Her eyes tracked the shift of his weight, the tension in his shoulders, the way his feet gripped the stone. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Watch, always watch. The body speaks before the attack comes." Drew two blades from his belt, curved weapons like the one held but larger. He was done playing. He had been embarrassed and did not forgive embarrassment. He attacked with skill this time, not just strength. His blades wove patterns in the air, creating walls of sharp metal that should have been impossible to pass. His four arms worked in perfect coordination, covering every angle, leaving no opening. Moved through the pattern like she belonged there. She ducked under one blade, stepped past another. Her body twisted in ways that seemed to ignore the normal rules of movement. She was not faster than, she was not stronger, but she was always exactly where his blades were not. The scanner updated its display. Combat analysis. Subject adapts in real time. No fixed pattern deity. Threat level calculating. Grew desperate. He increased his speed. His attacks became wilder, more powerful, more dangerous. Sweat ran down his scales despite the cool air. His muscles burned with effort. Was not even breathing hard. She had stopped thinking. The inheritance had fully awakened now, and it moved her body without need for conscious thought. 10,000 years of human survival flowed through her veins. 10,000 years of learning how to kill and how to avoid being killed. Humans had no natural weapons, so they had become weapons. Humans had no armor, so they had learned to never be where the attack landed. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest or the most durable, so they had learned to be the most adaptable, the most unpredictable, the most dangerous. Made a mistake. It was small, a slight overextension of his upper left arm. Any other opponent would not have noticed, but saw it the way a hawk sees a mouse in tall grass. She moved. Her hand caught his wrist. Her body turned. She used his own strength against him, redirecting his momentum in a way that his joints were not designed to handle. There was a sound like cracking wood, roared in pain as his arm bent wrong. His blade fell from his grip, caught it before it hit the ground. Now she had two weapons, had one and one arm that hung useless at his side. He stared at her with something new in his yellow eyes. It was not anger anymore. It was fear. Pressed forward, she was no longer just defending. Her blades moved in simple, efficient patterns, not beautiful, not complex, just effective. She cut a line across his right arm. He dropped another weapon. She kicked his knee and he buckled. In seconds was on his knees. His remaining good arm was twisted behind his back. Stood behind him, the blade pressed against his throat. The arena was completely silent. Leaned close to his ear. Her voice was soft, but somehow everyone heard it. "Yield." His breath came in ragged gasps. His scales had turned pale, a sign of submission in his species. He had been beaten, not just beaten, dismantled, taken apart by someone who should have been prey. "I yield," he whispered. Released him. He collapsed forward onto the stone and she stepped back. Her breathing was still steady. Her hands were still calm. She looked up at Commander. The serpentine head master stared back at her with an expression she could not read. The scanner displayed its final update. Analysis complete. Subject classification, unclassified apex. Combat methodology, adaptive predator. Recommendation, do not engage without overwhelming force. Slowly from somewhere in the crowd, someone began to clap, then another, then more. The applause spread until it filled the arena like thunder. Stood alone in the center of the pit, two blades in her hands, and felt the weight of her inheritance settle onto her shoulders. This was only the beginning. The news spread faster than light. Communication relays carried the story across the galaxy within hours. By the next morning, every major species in the Galactic Compact knew what had happened on Station Helix 9. A human translator had defeated a warrior elite in single combat. The ancient precursor scanner had failed to classify her. Questions were being asked. Demands were being made. The Compact Council called an emergency session. Admiral received the summons while she was reviewing fleet positions in her office. She was the highest-ranking human in compact space, a position she had earned through 30 years of service and blood. Her face was lined with age and stress. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her eyes held the weight of too many battles. She had fought in the Contact Wars, when humanity first met the Compact and nearly went to war over a misunderstanding. She had spent her entire career trying to prove that humans belonged among the stars, trying to earn respect for her species. Now she had to explain why that species had been hiding something. The council chamber was vast and circular. Representatives from the 12 founding species sat in elevated positions around the room. They were ancient races, powerful races, species that had ruled the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Admiral stood in the center of the chamber, alone. High Counselor spoke first. He was, and his voice was cold with barely contained anger. Admiral, your species has deceived us. You hid your true capabilities while pretending to be harmless. We hid nothing, replied calmly. We simply forgot. Murmurs rippled through the council. Counselor Myra of the leaned forward, her serpentine body coiling with interest. Explain. Took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment, but that did not make it easier. Human history is not like your histories, she began. You evolved on worlds where you were the dominant species. You faced environmental challenges, yes, but you did not face constant competition from other intelligent beings who wanted to kill you. She paused to let that sink in. Humans are different. We evolved on a world where we were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most deadly. We had no scales, no claws, no venom. Our bodies are soft, our senses are dull, and we require constant food and water to survive. Then how did you survive at all? Asked Counselor of the Crystalline. We adapted. His voice grew stronger. We developed persistence hunting. We would track prey for days, following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. We developed tools beyond any other species on our world. We learned to work together in groups, to communicate complex ideas, to plan for the future. She looked around the chamber, meeting each pair of alien eyes. But the most important adaptation was this: we learned to fight each other. Silence, the council members exchanged glances. For thousands of years, continued, humans warred against humans. We had no external enemy to unite us, so we fought ourselves. Every generation developed new weapons, new tactics, new ways to kill. And every generation developed new defenses, new counters, new ways to survive. She thought of the old recordings from Earth, the endless wars, the empires that rose and fell, the weapons that grew more terrible with each century. We became so good at killing that we nearly destroyed ourselves, several times. It was only in the last few centuries that we learned to control our violent nature. We built systems to prevent war. We focused our energy on exploration and science. We tried to become peaceful. And in doing so, Counselor Myra said slowly, you forgot what you were. Nodded. Most humans today have never been in combat. They have never needed to fight for survival. The skills that kept our ancestors alive for 10,000 years have faded from conscious memory. But they have not disappeared, High Counselor said. His voice was no longer cold, it was thoughtful. No, they are still there, buried in our bodies and our blood. passed down from parent to child. Some humans, like the woman on Station Helix 9, were raised in traditions that kept those skills alive, but even ordinary humans carry the potential within them. She stepped forward, her voice dropping to something almost like a warning. The precursor scanner could not classify us because we do not fit your categories. We are not apex predators by biology. We became apex predators by choice. We evolved not to be the strongest hunters, but to be the most dangerous prey. Creatures that learn, adapt, and overcome any threat. Admiral looked directly at High Counselor. You call us soft, weak, lucky survivors, but we survived by becoming the one thing that frightens all predators, prey that fights back, prey that learns from every attack, prey that gets more dangerous the longer the fight continues. The council chamber was very quiet. Counselor broke the silence. What do you propose we do with this information? Considered the question carefully. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Do nothing, she said. We are still the same species you accepted into the compact. We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to be your partners, not your enemies. She paused. But perhaps now you understand why we should not be underestimated. And perhaps you understand why we might be useful allies against threats that your warrior species have failed to defeat. High Counselor studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. The Council will deliberate, he said, but I believe humanity has made its point. As Admiral left the chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had spent years trying to earn respect through diplomacy and service. Perhaps fear would work better. 3 days after the council meeting, sat alone in her quarters on Station Helix 9. Her small room felt different now. Everything felt different. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer just a translator who could be pushed around and ignored. She was something else now, something that made people nervous. The station's corridors parted before her when she walked. Species that had once looked through her now stepped aside with careful respect. Even the warriors lowered their eyes when she passed. Had been sent home in disgrace. His 4 arms still worked, but his pride was shattered beyond repair. Did not enjoy any of it. She had spent years trying to be normal, trying to bury the inheritance, trying to forget her grandmother's teachings. Now the galaxy knew what she was, and there was no going back. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find a human man standing in the corridor. He was older, perhaps 60, with short gray hair and a face full of scars. He wore a compact military uniform, but without the usual markings. His rank insignia showed him as a general, but his unit designation was blank. My name is, he said. His voice was quiet and controlled. May I come in? Stepped aside. She had heard of General. Everyone had heard of him, though few knew details. He commanded something called the Special Operations Division. No one talked about what that division actually did. Entered and looked around her small room. He did not seem impressed or unimpressed. He simply observed the way a hunter observes terrain. You have caused quite a stir, he said. The council is still debating what to do about humanity's new classification. I did not ask for any of this, replied. No, but it happened anyway, turned to face her. His eyes were dark and deep like wells that went down forever. The galaxy thought they knew what humans were, soft, clever, good with machines and languages. They put us in a box and labeled it, and we let them, made us seem less threatening. Understood, a survival strategy. Exactly, but now the box is open. Now they know, or at least suspect, what we really are. Sat down on her small chair. He moved carefully like a man who was always aware of his body and its position. The question is, what do we do next? We, humanity, and more specifically you, leaned forward. There are threats beyond the compact's borders, ancient things, species and entities that the warrior races have fought for generations without victory. Things that adapt to our allies' tactics, that learn their weaknesses, that grow stronger with each encounter. Felt something stir in her chest. The inheritance recognized what he was describing. It recognized the hunt. The compact needs soldiers who can do what their warriors cannot, continued. Soldiers who think differently, who fight differently, who can adapt faster than the enemy adapts. You want me to join your division, said. It was not a question. Nodded slowly. The scanner called you an unclassified apex. It was not wrong, but that classification comes with responsibility. The galaxy is watching humanity now. What they see will determine our future among the stars. Thought about her life before the arena, the quiet work, the invisible existence, the careful effort to be normal. That life was gone now. The inheritance had awakened and it would not sleep again. What happened to the last team you sent? She asked. His expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Old pain, carefully controlled. They were not ready. They were good soldiers, trained well, brave beyond measure, but they were not what the mission required. And you think I am? I think you might be, stood. I am not offering you glory or honor. I am offering you hard work, constant danger, and the chance to protect our species when no one else can. Most people who accept this offer do not come back. Looked at her hands. These hands had held a translator's tablet for years. Now they remembered how to hold a blade. They remembered movements her conscious mind had tried to forget. Her grandmother's voice whispered from memory, "The inheritance is not a gift, it is a duty. When the time comes, you will know what to do." The time had come. "I will do it," said. Nodded as if he had expected nothing else. "Report to Dock 7 tomorrow at dawn. Bring nothing, everything you need will be provided." He walked to the door, then paused. "One more thing. The station's scanner has been updated with new human classification data. You should see it." After he left, went to the grand arena. It was empty now, the seats dark and silent. She walked to the center of the pit, where she had stood 3 days ago with its blade in her hand. The scanner pillar stood nearby. She approached it, and it activated automatically. Species human Terran. Classification Apex Adaptive. Threat assessment Context dependent. Special note: do not underestimate. Below that, a new line had been added. Recommendation: potential ally approach with respect. Smiled. It was a small smile, quiet and private. Her grandmother would have been proud. Across the galaxy, other species were making new calculations about the soft, clever creatures from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. They were updating their records, revising their assumptions, reconsidering their attitudes. Humans were no longer invisible. They were no longer the compact's pets or charity cases. They were something new, something old, something that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. And somewhere beyond the compact's borders, ancient threats waited in the darkness between stars. They had defeated warrior species for thousands of years. They had never faced anything like humanity. They had no idea what was coming. Left the arena and walked toward her future. The inheritance sang in her blood, and she carried 10,000 years of human survival on her shoulders. She was ready.